Hello everybody and welcome to this amazing game of last year, The Nightmare. Tons of games have been releasing betas this month and I've had the pleasure to test quite a few of them. Last year was a game that was on my radar way back when Dead by Daylight came out, and this was meant to be the game that was going to be the competitor to Dead by Daylight through Kickstarter. Years passed and nothing was said about the game until more recently, and now we have a playable beta to test out. The game did show up at various conventions, but I missed the opportunity to play them and only ever heard rumors. Content creators were given an opportunity to play this beta, and here's what we got. Last year happened to turn out to be a game I didn't quite expect. Based on the premise of the game, I thought it was supposed to just be teen survivors versus a school killer in a game similar to Dead by Daylight. However, this wasn't the case, as the game has a lot more in common with Left 4 Dead than it actually does with Dead by Daylight. I make these comparisons only because it's kind of easier to understand a game when we have something to compare it to, and with a basis, I thought this was going to be a competitor to Dead by Daylight, but it actually turned out to be quite a good game on its own. Last year is a 5 vs 1 asymmetrical team game. In this beta, we were given 5 survivors that are pretty much just different personalities, but they share all the same traits. There are 4 different classes to choose from, however, which alter their main tool and what they're capable of crafting. Only 2 survivors at most can be one class, so it helps kinda spread out everybody picking different classes. Killer, on the other hand, has a team of 3 different killers to choose from, and I say team because the killer will select one of these 3, utilizing their individual strengths to deal with the current situation. Each killer has a basic attack, and 2 of them, the Strangler and Giant, have unique abilities, and then they all also have unique instant kill traps. The killer will actually be playing any of the 3 during a match. They are not limited to just one. All killers have the ability to enter a phantom state where they are invisible. They can move quickly, teleport, and access traps while in this state. Other than the unique instant kill trap locations, all killers can sabotage scrap locations and set bear traps. As a phantom, they can pass through doors only if they're not fortified. Killers can only enter this mode if they are out of the line of sight of survivors, similar to Left 4 Dead. They may reappear in the same fashion, and must use this power to try to position the survivors in an unfavorable location. The object of the game is for the killer to prevent the survivors from escaping within the time limit. Survivors have an escape plan that they have to follow to escape. Right now there's only one plan and one map. I'm not sure if the plans are meant to change per map or if a map just has a different plan, but there's only one, and so for now that's all we can go with. Right now, survivors deliver 2 gas cans to the lift, drive the lift to the stairs, take the stairs to the rafter has a crank which you turn to open, and then the hatch opens at the top. Once that crank is turned, it puts the time limit down to 1 minute regardless of where they're at, and the survivors must rush to escape when they open that side. The time limit will keep survivors in a rush to get to the end and survive. For each survivor that escapes, it rewards the survivors with a trophy, meaning that they're encouraged to get as many of them out as possible for the highest reward. Killer, on the other hand, gets trophies in 2 ways. 1. The killer gets trophies for completing challenges that are notated at the beginning of the match, such as killing survivors in a specific manner, and the other is just killing all the survivors, and essentially that grants additional trophies. What the trophies do is currently unknown, and the current challenges actually have experience tied to them, but currently in beta it is not tied to anything, so whether this all comes together at the end at release, I'm excited to see, but right now it's just an arbitrary leaderboard trophy system. A very common question is, how do I like the game? The answer is that I'm a bit on the fence. The game is a fun party game, one where you can gather several friends, play together, and have a blast. And in beta, there's obvious bugs and glitches, and most of them have caused a lot of laughter, as long as you don't care much about winning the game. Some are visually hilarious, and others actually do feel a bit unfair, where you'd get a grab or deal damage, which you normally wouldn't think you would. Although in terms of wanting to play this in a more competitive style, it's extremely unbalanced. Now, of course I'm not talking esports, but competitive just means you play to win the game, and some players like myself do want to just play per the rules and win the game. And we laugh and play with the idea that killers in Dead by Daylight are a joke for survivors. However, I've come to realize that we are blessed with the idea of killers in Dead by Daylight because they are not nearly as weak as those in last year. It's become quite a trend for survivors to be stronger than the killer, and the survivors actually have the tools to fight back and weapons to craft in this game. From automatic turrets to explosives, shotguns, and stun guns, there's no limit to what a survivor can do. The killer has 3 options of weaponry that are all easily countered by a single survivor, which means, yes, a single survivor can potentially 1v1 the single killer in this game, and there are 5 survivors. Strangler is similar to the smoker from Left 4 Dead. You throw the chain, pull the survivor, and begin strangling them. If they get low enough, you execute them. They can't react once you catch them. But if another survivor is nearby, they can rescue the captured one, which deals high damage to you, the killer. The Assault class's base weapon is also a counter to the Strangler, as the Strangler has low HP and is more designed to execute survivors that are alone. Even a survivor without a weapon can defeat you by simply rescuing others, since that does deal damage to you. It's kinda silly to watch someone kill you from a distance by just rescuing a friend being dragged along the floor. Although the Strangler can punch people, his attacks are usually weak, but he is fast. Slasher is an axe-wielding janitor that has no special ability. He just attacks and has moderate HP with moderate damage. The issue is that the Slasher is very clunky and can't run and attack at the same time. He stops his movement to make a swing, which means if the survivors are walking away, they dodge the attack. The Slasher's only hope is to corner a survivor and get a surprise hit. Once a hit is landed, the survivor can no longer move, and you can typically finish them off as long as they don't have any more stamina to sprint out of the next attack. A massive issue with the Slasher, though, is that he also has a sprint meter, and that doesn't last as long as the survivors, or about just the same as the survivors. And the survivors can just outrun him, meaning he's the least threatening killer. And since he has no ability, he doesn't do anything other killers can't do, since the others have a unique capture and execute attack, while the Slasher only slashes. Granted, it's in his name, I get it, but in a casual game, this is fine. You can run from them, you'll catch them off guard, you'll kill them, but otherwise, experienced survivors will make a joke of you. You want to see a killer get looped, watch a Slasher struggle trying to get around a desk. Moving on to the third killer, he is the most powerful, it's the Giant. Having some crazy hitboxes, it makes him the favorable killer. The range he has to grab people is a lot more than you think it would be, which can lead to some very unfair grabs, even through walls or on top of the cranes. It gets a little ridiculous. Once he grabs you, he can toss you. If you hit a wall or object, you slam to the floor, get dealt a lot of damage, and kinda stuck in a get-up motion, which takes way too long. It guarantees a kill, usually. He has the most HP, but he is also the slowest killer, which is no issue since you can quickly move with Phantom mode. It's very easy to exploit a little bit of Phantom mode's respawn areas, since breaking line of sight is easy through corners and little gaps in hallways, and that allows the Giant to spawn directly next to a survivor, allow for a very easy grab, and then just outright murder them. But the Giant does have some weaknesses. Even with these exploits with line of sight, the fact he is slow and can't chase is pretty massive when you're in the open. He does have a charge attack, but it's very slow to build it up. They know it's coming, and all they do is pretty much turn to the side and walk away from you, and you won't be using this too much without being in a hallway where they can't go side to side. Killing survivors will only be temporary, as other survivors can rescue them from closets from around the map. Dying as a killer is also not the end, as you will respawn as a different killer of your choice. You cannot be the same killer twice in a row, but you can always swap back after your second death. Due to the ability to respawn indefinitely, you have to be able to kill all survivors at the same time, which means you have to catch them off guard and break their formation. And due to the objective that they have and their weaponry, you can actually expect to die a lot yourself as the killer, and I mean a lot. But always remember that your objective is not always to just kill them, but it's actually to stall them for time. Survivors get all the tools necessary to handle anything the killer can do. Traps can be walked over by crouching or even disarmed. Instant kill traps can be completely avoided since they can only be activated when the killer is there in the first place, is that specific killer, and have to be standing in the trap location, as you can't set it yourself. So if they know where the locations are, and they do know your killer, as they can just hit tab to find out, they will just avoid these very specific locations. Again, as a new player, you'll walk into these and you won't even know what they are, but as you get used to it, you will never stand in those spots ever again. Anything the killer does, the survivors can respond to. Even if a survivor is downed, the killer has to enter an entire execute animation to finish them off, which the killer can be killed while he is performing. And if the animation doesn't completely finish, the survivor actually lives. So if you leave a survivor down to chase another survivor, the one you left down will actually automatically get up as well. So you have to be able to execute them or interrupt them or hope they didn't get the time to build a tool to interrupt you or kill you outright. For a team of survivors to get a guaranteed win, simply they need to rush the objective first, which puts the final crank at 99% completion. If they don't finish it, the timer does not jump down to a single minute. They then take any additional time they have after they get to the crank to that point to find scraps to have the medic craft stun guns and the scouts to craft shotguns. With this, they will then enter the final showdown with you by turning the crank and meeting you at the exit. The killer will be there to try to prevent anyone from getting out in the next minute, while the survivors will do their best to kill him and then walk out, or sneak by and walk out. The idea is that the survivors will stun the killer so that he cannot act. Stun guns completely remove the killer's ability to react to anything else. The other survivors with shotguns will likely shoot him and kill him outright. And due to the limited space on the rafters, mistakes can be made and survivors will occasionally fall. It is more common that one or two falls to their death from everyone pushing each other, but that's fine as not all need to make it out. But typically the killer will be killed and the rest will just walk away. Some funny instances can happen, glitches occur of course, but in the end that's the ultimate repetition. It's the survivors gear up, go up, kill the killer, and walk out. Being this is one of the first Discord games out for Discord service, Discord's chat is used and forces you into voice comms with all other players in the lobby, including the killer. Currently in the beta, the only way to mute yourself is to mute your actual Discord, which is slightly annoying for me as I'd rather just have an in-game mute button and the option to turn that on or off in my game, instead of, having to be a part of voice immediately, as that can lead to some privacy issues on my part. I don't really like that all that much. I now know that, but loading the game up the first time, oh boy, that was terrifying. And on top of that, I don't like to stream other people's voices because they have tended to say things that are not very welcome on Twitch. So I'd rather the killer have his own voice channel and my own options to talk to people. I don't want to be forced into it. The game really reminds me of Friday the 13th's voice comms because it's kind of like a positive and a negative. I had a blast meeting some new players, but ultimately I would rather not talk to them personally or be involved with voice comms, but at least Friday the 13th allowed me to turn those off or mute specific people. These are all things that can be obviously fixed before release, so I hope that's corrected before then if they view this as a problem as much as I did. In the game's current state, I wouldn't purchase it since I don't want to play any more party-like asymmetrical games. I already have Dead by Daylight for that. I don't really enjoy the lobby system either. You can't pick to play killer. You could just vote that you want to be killer. If nobody else votes to be killer, sure, you are guaranteed killer, but if other people vote, your chances to be killer then become limited, and you're just praying that you get what you want. This was one of my largest gripes with Friday the 13th when it came out. I would go 40 games without playing Jason, and I felt that was very annoying since I couldn't practice playing the role I wanted. Same with this game, it just becomes relatively annoying when I'm denied killer because everyone else also wants to be killer, and that just really borks with whether or not I get to play what I want. This does resolve lobby issues in terms of there being too many killers or survivors, but I feel there are other solutions to this that would help eliminate the queue time issue without locking half the game behind just a chance. Remember though, these issues are present, but it is only a beta. Likely some numbers can be altered, tweaked, and balance can be made better, along with changes to the lobby that might be more appealing. The game is aesthetically beautiful, and the detail to the world is wonderful. The game feels a bit clunky though, and movement is a bit tanky, but that comes with polish, and that'll improve over time. I'm sure they can work that all out. The concept of the game is very interesting, for as long as both sides can make interesting decisions that alter the other side. Killers will need a bit more options to balance this game out, but overall, it is fantastic casually. I'll be excited to see changes that they put in, and if there's an open beta, I would love to try it again, but until I get that opportunity, I don't really recommend this game until the balance changes are made. It's likely they won't be able to get all the balance changes in either, because the game is set to come out before 2019. From what I've heard, it's supposed to come out in the end of November, maybe. I'm not exactly sure if there's a date set, but for sure, there's a lot for them to work on, and I hope some things get changed. The game just comes down to survivors being very monotonous to play, and just a chance to play killer, which can also be kinda one-sided, and you can feel really bullied when everybody gets the shotguns rolling. You'll be shot a lot. That wraps up the closed beta and everything I had to say about it. Did you get a code? What were your thoughts? Did you play it? And did you get the same experience as I did? Did you notice how weak killers were? Was it the exact opposite? Did you play with a full group? Let me know everything. Let me know how you felt about the game. A lot of people do really like it. I'm not gonna deny that. A lot of people think it looks great, looks fun, and I believe that it's a fantastic party game too. And is the game exactly how you thought it would be? Did you think this was gonna be a Dead by Daylight killer? Personally, it's so different from Dead by Daylight, I think it's just not gonna change anything with the game. It's just gonna be its own separate entity, not a true competitor. And I didn't know much about this game beforehand, and it was a pleasure to get to experience it firsthand. Thank you all for watching. Don't forget to like, comment, subscribe, and as always, good game.